Just a brief comment, generally and specifically. Generally, our society has made incredible technological advances, as we all know. But there are still major gaps, such as equality and opportunity for all. All of the smart homes and nanotechnology are inadequate if they're not shared by all. For our world to be an equitable and sustainable place, we need a foundation of education and financial literacy that will open doors to success. Without that foundation, much of society will be marginalized and held back from advancing and contributing in meaningful ways. This is harmful not only to those marginalized, but to society as a whole, as we are missing out on the talents and perspectives of millions of people who are not being equipped with the skills and voice to share their natural abilities. Donald Reid believed in equality and opportunity. He was particularly concerned about marginalized youth. And on behalf of the estate, I would like to say that the program that you're putting together is exactly what he would have strongly approved of and supported. And as executive of the estate, I'm delighted to be able to join with you today and helping in a small way to make this possible. Thank you.
All right. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to participate. I'm super excited about today to talk about Flip and Floss. So just to let you guys know, so Flip and Floss is acronym for Financial Literacy and Investor Program and Future Leaders Obtaining Sufficient Skills. Now, this program came about because of my own experiences in Canada, struggling financially when I moved here from Jamaica. Within about 2 to 3 years, I quickly racked up about $50,000 in debt, car debt, student loan, credit card, etc. And I was struggling. I was living from paycheck to paycheck. And I know I needed to do something differently, right? So I had to make a lot of sacrifices in order to get myself out of financial debt. And throughout that process, I met a lot of people along the way who had similar struggles, and I wanted to help people. So I started volunteering at the JCA, which is the Jamaica Canadian Association, teaching financial literacy. After that, I recognized there was a huge demand for financial literacy within the community. And I started to volunteer at different organizations across the GTA. And this is where Flip and Floss was founded, right? My wife and I, we wanted to find a concept that would appeal people, and we came up with flipping money. Young people, we like to flip money. So I'm like, you know what, if we flip it, we floss it, then how can I make those two concepts something meaningful? And so that's how Flip and Floss came about. And I am here to help people, individuals and family, to make better choices. Just like the president of the BBPA said, understanding finances gives us leverage. And so that's why I'm here today. Thank you, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session. Let's get to some information about my background and where I'm from and how I got started. So again, I'm from Jamaica, Spanish Town, Jamaica. Big up to all my Jamaican peeps in the house. If anyone is from Jamaica, give me some reaction. All right, big up to everyone from the rest of the Caribbean, those from Canada as well. So I attended York University and I did my undergraduate degree in accounting. I graduated in 2015 with an honors degree in accounting. I also have a part-time business at Easy Solution Tax and Consulting Services, where I provide support to individuals and businesses with their taxes. And I also provide one-on-one consultation with businesses as well. This year in 2020, I became the CBC Toronto Community Champion Award recipient. And that was because of my work in financial literacy within the community. This was an intense process. There were so many people nominated, over 100 candidates, and it was up to the judges to select 10 nominees, and then it was up to the public to vote on the top 5 people. And I was able to become one of those recipients because of my work and because of the importance of financial literacy. And so that is why I continue to do this work. But here's the thing, outside of financial literacy, I like to write poems. And I actually have one to share with you today. And this came about because of what's going on in the US. It's called No Justice for Black Youth. Lord God, me tired of the hate. America, when you go repatriate? Mr. Kaepernick go down pan him knee, yet still them a kill we. Them say America the land of the free and the brave, but a bare innocent black youth, them a send God them grave. It's a tragedy because enough black youth is left without a daddy. Then them blame the black father them and say them not care about them picking them. America, land of opportunity, but the youth them can't even get little gratuity. How can I be black when my own country not got me back? And every day is another innocent youth drop. America, me can't breathe. Please, me I beg you, for another chance to succeed. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk about finances. So that poem was written by me the other day. So give me some reaction there if you enjoyed that poem. All right. So let's talk about our first module. Actually, before that, let's talk about what are the objectives or the aim of Flip and Floss. So our first objective is big picture financial thinking. So I came up with this objective because I want people to think about money as more than just a piece of paper. I want people to see it as a tool to build wealth, to make important decisions, and to think about money in many contexts, such as investing in the stock market, investing in real estate, or just money as a tool to create opportunities for you and your family. And so that's one of the aims of Flip and Floss. The next aim is helping individuals and families to achieve financial freedom. Now, what does that mean? This might mean different things for different families. However, whatever it means to you, understanding the importance of finances and how to achieve your individual goal is key. And then the last objective of Flip and Floss is to increase financial knowledge. Now, financial knowledge can be a very tough and daunting topic, right? But if you know what you're looking for example, when you go to the bank and you understand those concepts, you are well on your way to making better financial decisions. And I'm here to use Flip and Floss to make finance a lot more enjoyable. Now, let's get into our first module. Today, we're going to talk about the concepts of credit, which falls under one of our key competences. So we have 4 key competences, which is personal finance, investment and banking, so it is wills and insurance, and estate planning, and taxation and retirement planning, right? So those are the 4 key competency areas, and under each of those areas, we're going to be talking about different things. And like I said, today we're talking about understanding the concept of credit. All right, so my first question to the participants today, have you ever taken anything on credit or leased a vehicle? All right, so I'm getting a lot of reaction there. Some people saying yes, some saying no. All right, whether or not you have taken anything on credit or ever leased a vehicle, it is important, right? Some people think that, okay, I don't need to take anything on credit. Well, actually you do, right? Because credit is important in Canada. If you're from Jamaica, you'll probably hear the famous saying that Mr. Trust is dead and buried, right? What does that mean? It means that you can't get anything on credit. But in Canada, it's different. You actually need credit to get certain things, right? And so that's why I'm here to actually help you to understand the concept of credit. So in the next slide, we're going to be talking about credit score and credit reporting and what it actually means. So what is a credit? Anyone here know what is credit? Just give me a quick yes, no, or in your own word, what is credit? Borrowed money. Yeah, that's essentially it. So credit is literally taking money. It could be money, it could be asset or something with a promise to repay a certain amount. And usually there's a cost to borrowing, right? So, and that's what they call interest. In order for you to get something on credit, there has to be some kind of history so that the lenders are familiar with you as a person and whether or not you're going to repay your loan. So in Canada, they use what is considered a credit score, all right, as well as a credit report. And the credit score is a number that ranges from 300 to 900. And this depicts your credit worthiness. So how likely are you to repay when you borrow something? So the higher the score, the more favorable you're seen to lenders. The lower the score, the less attractive you are to lenders. So it's important that you maintain a high credit score. And in future slides, I'm going to show you how you can improve or build your credit score. So earlier I asked the question, if you wanted to lease a vehicle, or if you have leased a vehicle, you will need some kind of credit history, right? If you go to a dealership and ask, hey, I need to lease a vehicle, they're going to ask you to run your credit report. In some cases, the dealer might say, hey, we're not going to run your credit report. We don't need a credit score. Just know that there's a catch to that. If there is no credit requirement for a credit, usually the cost of borrowing is higher because that lender will be taking on significant risk to lend you. So they're going to be finding some ways to compensate. And usually that's by charging higher interest. Okay. So one thing I wanted to clarify, that's important for people to understand what a lease is, like I said earlier. So a lease is a contract under which one party agrees to rent a property owned by another. So you're essentially borrowing that vehicle and then you're paying a certain amount. Okay. All right. So let's take it to what does a credit score mean? So can everyone see the slide clearly? Just give me a reaction. Yes? No? All right, so I'm going to try to go over some of what's in this slide. So the future slides will go in more detail. So this image here is just illustrating like the range between low credit and high credit, right? So perhaps we should just go to the other slide because this image is a bit blurry. So let's go to the other slide that goes into more detail of what the credit score actually means. All right, so like I said, the score ranges from 300 to 900. The average score is somewhere between 660 and 700. So if you're within that range, if you're in the average range, it means that you can qualify for most loan products, right? At a reasonable rate. So let's say you fall below average. Now it might become more difficult for you to get certain products. So I don't know if you've ever gone to like a store and you're trying to take out something on credit and it doesn't matter what you do, they keep denying your application. That's because your credit score is too low, or you've probably applied for too many credits within a short period of time. And so those things can have significant impact. So you want to make sure that you're building a healthy credit score and a credit history. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and the doctor say, have you had a family doctor before, or have you sought medical anywhere in the past? And if you said yes, they're going to ask for that medical history to get a better understanding of your medical circumstances. It's the same thing with the credit score. And that's why the lenders will ask for your credit history, right? And so in the next slide, I'm going to be talking about in more specifically what each number means and how it might affect when you're ready to borrow. So this brief video here will just walk us through that process. And it's a 1-minute video presented by RBC. If you have any questions.
Most of us have a credit score, and it can have an impact on many aspects of your life. It's important to know your score and understand what it means. Now, you can easily get your credit score and more for free in RBC Online Banking. Once you've signed in, simply click on the View Credit Score link and you're on your way. This innovative tool lets you view your current credit score and gain valuable insight into specific factors that may affect it. Want to see where you stand? Use the ranking chart to see where your score fits compared to others across Canada. Use the My Score History feature to track how your score has changed over time. Want to see how certain activities could impact your score? The powerful Score Simulator can help. Maybe you're thinking of taking out a loan and want to pay down a balance on your credit card. Now you can preview how those changes could potentially impact your score before you make them with just a few clicks. It's empowering information that can help you actively manage your credit conveniently and securely. As an RBC client, you can access this and all the credit score features for free at any time without affecting your credit score in any way. See where your credit stands. Sign on to RBC Online Banking and try it today.
So a lot of times we are trying to make a decision as to whether or not we should take out a certain credit product and how it will impact our score. Thanks to technology, we have the tools to be able to run simulative activities to see how that will affect our score before the decision is actually made. And I think someone commented in the chat, which I will be talking about, the different types of credit score, credit report, and what are the different types of checks. So there is hard check and soft check, right? And so you must understand that when you do your own credit report, if you were to go to Equifax and TransUnion and do a credit check, that's considered a soft check, and that doesn't affect your credit score, right? So it's important to know that. A lot of people will ask me, oh, what if I run my own credit? Will it affect me? No, it's considered a soft check. Another type of soft check is where the bank or any lender does a check in the background and sends you email or a note saying that you've been pre-approved for a certain amount of a loan. That's considered a soft check, and it doesn't affect your score. What affects your score is when you go to a financial institution and you ask them for a credit product, and in order to determine if you're qualified for that product, they ask you to do a credit check. So that is considered a hard check, and that affects your score.
Just had a quick comment there, Andre.
Yep.
Our good friend Roger Mooking, Chef Roger Mooking, has noted that you are able to get that credit check. However, a lot of different institutions like TransUnion and Equifax will charge you for this. And are we entitled to have this annually for free?
Yes, definitely. Great question. So actually, that's true. So Equifax and TransUnion, so they charge you for the actual score. So they don't charge you for the report because legally they're supposed to give you a free credit report annually. However, they don't have to give it a score for free. So what you pay for is that actual score. But what I want to let you guys know is that you can still get that report and score for free through sites like Credit Karma or CIBC also has a free tool. So if you bank with CIBC, they'll give you the credit score for free. So they're actually online website that gives you the score and the report for free. But just to that point, you can also request a copy of your report that tells you what's on your file, the different products that you've taken, the impacts to your score. You can get that for free by writing to Equifax or TransUnion. Okay? All right, so we're going to talk about what does your credit score mean in more detail. All right, so a 720 to 799. So this means that you have very good credit. You should expect a variety of credit product and probably low interest rates, right? So if you had a score of 720 or 799, and you go into the bank and you said, hey, I need a line of credit or an auto loan, then you can get favorable rates. What I actually want to point out to you guys as I talk about rates is that, and I mentioned earlier about the lease vehicle, is that you always want to pay attention to when you go to lease a vehicle. So for example, when you lease a vehicle or you take it on finance, when the car is a new car, right, they usually have promotional rates. So it might be 0.99%, but if you were to go in and you were to buy a used car, the rate is usually higher. So it doesn't matter what your credit score is. They don't look at your history. They look at whether or not it's a promotional rate on a new vehicle versus a used vehicle rate, right? But nonetheless, once you have a good credit history and a good credit score, you can expect to get almost approved for anything unless there are different factors that you need to establish. And you'll see that when we talk about debt next week, you'll see for mortgage, it goes beyond just credit score, right? However, today we're going to focus on credit score only. So a score from 650 to 719, what does that mean? So this is considered good to lenders. So you're right here around just below average, right? Or just above average. So this means that you may qualify for certain products, not all products, but for certain products, and your rate might be a little higher, right? However, that's still a good rate because if you need to get a mortgage, they require 660, and I believe the CMHC just changed that to 680. But prior to the changes, you need about 680 to qualify for a mortgage. Now, 600 to 649, it means that you need a little work, right? It's decent, but there's some work that needs to be done to improve your score to the good category. So this is considered fair credit. There's history of debt repayment, right? However, there might be some late payments or some missed payments that might be impacting your score here. And you would have to take a look at what specifically might be impacting your score and why it's at a 600 to a 649. Now, 300 to 599, you definitely need some work. You need to do a lot of work. This is considered a poor credit score. And if you're at 300 to 599, then you need to do some work. This might mean that there's some collection on your account or quite a few late payment history, right? So it's important that you take a look at your score. And we're going to talk about in the other slides, some of the factors that affect your score and how much of an impact they have on your score. All right, so like I said earlier, the score ranges from good from excellent to poor. All right, so this slide is very important, and I want everyone to pay attention to this slide. So what has the biggest impact on your credit score? So we're talking about the actual number here, not the history, right? So the number is different from the history, and there are different methods and different ways of calculating the score. But these are the factors that have the most significant impact. So 35% of your credit score will be impacted by your payment history. So what does that mean? If you have good payment history, your score will be mostly higher because of good payment history, right? So already 35% of that high score is accounted for good payment history. If you don't have good payment history, then 35% of your score will be impacted. What is good payment history? That means paying your bills on time. When you actually go in your report, which we'll look at in a few, sorry. So what we look at in the next couple of slides, the actual credits report, you will see what I'm talking about. But usually on your credit report, you will see when your payment is due and whether or not you've made that payment. And it's usually indicated by a green check mark under the lender, right? And that has the biggest impact, right? The second one has to do with how much you owe, right? And this is what is considered your debt utilization. So what do I mean by debt utilization? If you have a credit card, for example, and your limit is $1,000 and you have used 50%, right? $500, it means that you've utilized 50% of your credit. Now, anything above 30% utilization will have an impact by the next reporting period, right? So you want to make sure that if it is that you're using more than 30% of your credit card, that you paid off before it gets reported to the bureau. Now, everyone will have a different reporting time when the bank reports to the bureau. If you want to know when your bank reports your outstanding balance to the bureau, all you have to do is go on your credit report and it will tell you below the lender, it will say last reported on, right? So I know, for example, that my credit card gets reported on the 15th of each month. And so I know that I need to pay off any balance before the 15th, or else they'll report that outstanding balance and that will go into my utilization, right? So that affects 30%. And that's just one example. If you have multiple credit products and you are utilizing most of the limit on all those products, then that's going to affect your overall utilization, right? And so that's about 30%. So it's important to keep your utilization low, right? There are other things that affect your credit history, such as the type of credit. They say the more types of credit that you have. So for example, if you have a credit card, if you have a car payment, and if you have a mortgage, that will go into the different types, right? I have seen people with an 800 credit score and they only have a credit card. So I don't know how much of an impact that one will have on your credit. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go and take out all different types of credit. You can have an 800 score just by having one credit card, a good payment history, and not utilizing more than 30% off your credit limit, okay? And there are other things as well, such as the age of your credit. So I didn't notice that they look at the age of your credit. So let's say, for example, 5 years ago, you took out a credit card, right? and then today you want to take out another credit card. So they're actually they're gonna average the age of that your credit history. So that might become 2.5 years history. So you know your one credit card moves from a 5-year credit history to a 2.5 years history because they've averaged both. Another important thing that you need to keep in mind is that if you're going to cancel one of those credit cards, you have to weigh carefully to make sure that you're not canceling the card that has the longest history. And that was one of the mistakes that I almost made when I just moved to Canada. I got my credit card, and because that credit card had a $500 limit and I got a new card from Scotia, I wanted to cancel the $500 limit and stay with the card that has a $2,000 limit. And that would have been a big mistake because I had that card about 8 years earlier. So I would have canceled 8 years of history. All right. So it's important to keep that in mind as you think about your credit products.
Got a question here, Andre. So for parents who have children, getting a credit card for them and just maintaining that credit so that they've got a credit history, would that be something advisable as long as obviously they're paying it off if they're using it?
Well, it's a bit tricky to give a kid a credit card on their own. What you can do is probably get a joint card, right? That the parent has control over the card. And whenever that, him or her wants to make a purchase, the parent is there to supervise that purchase. And once that purchase goes through, the parent maintains control. So in a scenario like that, that person is building their credit history because their name is also showing up on the credit card. But in terms of the discipline and not like spending too much, because I've seen so many cases where parents are in debt and kids are in debt because of the child and not necessarily the actions of the parent. So I think it's more, it's advisable to get a joint card and the parent manages the usage. All right, so now we're going to take a look at a sample Equifax credit report, and we're going to walk through some of the important concepts in this report. All right, so I'm not sure if everyone can see. Are we having a good time so far? Everyone learning something new today? Having fun? Give me a reaction there. Thumbs up, yes? All right. If you're not having fun, I'll drop another poem, eh? Let me know. All right. So this is a sample report from Equifax. And it's a bit blurry, so I'm not sure if everyone can see. Can we pull it up some more? All right, perfect, thank you. All right, so some of the information that you'll find in the credit report. So you'll see at the top who the credit report is from. So in Canada, there are two major, the only two. They're Equifax and TransUnion, where you can get your credit information, right? So at the top, you'll see that right there. And then you'll see a section that breaks it down into the different categories. So there is the credit summary. There's also account information, enquiries. So enquiries is where, remember earlier I talked about a soft enquiry and a hard enquiry. So that's where you'll find that information. The more of those enquiries that you do, so this means going into the bank or the grocery store the clothing store and asking for a credit, the more that will impact your score. By the way, I don't recommend going to those clothing store and get credit cards. Their interest is ridiculous. All right. And so we'll talk about those in my thing on debt management. All right. So summary, it gives you a brief, it highlights some of the things that are affecting your score. So at the credit summary, it will say, this is, your score and this is how you rank compared to other Canadians, right? And so it will tell you whether or not you're at the average or you're doing excellent. Accounts is where you'll find a detailed summary of all your credit products. So you'll see your credit card, you'll see your car payment. And for example, Rogers report. So it's important that you pay a phone bill on time. I know the pandemic is going on, but if you're not going to pay a bill, you need to let Rogers know, or Bell, because they report to the bureau as well. So you'll see there whether or not you're paying on time, when your payment date is coming up. And also some reports, depending on whether you go through Equifax or TransUnion, they will give you this nice chart that gives you your debt to credit ratio, right? So that will tell you how much of your total loan product you're utilizing. So it gives you a nice graph that shows it to you right there, right? So that's good. You know, some people are more of a visual learner, so we like to see rather than reading. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it talks about the account age. So here it will tell you your length of history, right? How long you've had credit. This is very key. And what happens is that, I don't know, if you're a newcomer to Canada, you'll find that you go to the bank and you need a credit product, maybe a credit card, and they'll say, no, you don't have any credit history. That's because you've never utilized any credit. One thing you can do if you are unable to get credit, you could get a secure credit card, right? Or a secure loan. So you could probably, a secure loan is where you're going to the bank and you're getting a credit card of $1,000 and you're putting $1,000 in place, right? So you're giving the bank $1,000, but you get that credit card. Now, what that does for you is that by repaying on time and using your credit card, it helps you to build that history, right? I know some banks like TD, they will help you out as a newcomer, especially students, and you might be able to get a card. But that's where you would see that information. All right, enquiries again. Minimize the enquiries. So if it is, and what I see some people do is that they want to get a credit card, so they go to RBC. RBC says, no, you're not getting a credit card. Then you know what? You say, you know what? Oh, I don't want you, RBC. I'm going to go to TD. And TD said, no. You say, you know what? There are 5 banks in Canada. I'm going to go to CIBC. Don't do that, because that's going to affect the amount of enquiries on your file, and that's going to bring down your score. And believe it or not, the lenders are going to look in this history to see where you've gone for loan product, and they're pretty much going to say no as well. So don't do that. Wait for about 3 to 6 months before you do your next search, right? Potentially negative information. Hey, I will tell you this. I had a Rogers collection, and I'm not afraid to talk about it because that's where most of my learning came from. I had a collection from Rogers because I didn't fully understand everything when I just came here. And when I came here, I was studying at U of T, and I got a phone from Rogers, and I was like, you know what? I'm over Rogers, so I'm just going to take the phone and go to someone else. Well, about a year and a half later, I got that pink piece of paper in the mail that says you have a collection, and then Rogers started calling me. And that was it. I wasn't able to get any loan product since that time. So please do not get collection. Call the lender, come to an agreement in terms of when and how you're going to pay. Prevent this from happening. I'm telling you from experience. All right. And so if you have a mortgage, the mortgage may or may not show up on your credit history. Even if it's not on the report, it's there in the background. If you don't pay your mortgage, and you might see it showing up there, or you might see someone coming to your house asking you to leave. All right. So there are installment payments as well. So you'll see those installment payments. So installment payment is something like a student loan, right? Where you have to make a certain amount of payment each period, right? And that's the same with auto loan. They call them revolving credits as well, right? All right. And so below that, you'll see all your open accounts. So this is very important, right? So open account is the account that are you're actively utilizing the credit and making payment as agreed, right? So you'll see something like right here in the top right corner, it says pay as agreed, right? So that means you're currently utilizing this product and you're paying when you're supposed to pay. If your credit is closed and you've no longer used that credit, you will see it under the closed section. Now, I strongly suggest that you check your credit report periodically. So for me personally, I check mine every 2 weeks. I know I'm a bit paranoid, but identity theft is real. So you want to always check your credit report. However frequently you want to do that, it's up to you. You can do it monthly, every 3 months, or every 6 months, just to make sure that no one is opening any account on your behalf. Right? So there, you will get some information. I'll suggest doing a quick Google search of a sample credit report if you want more information, specifically about what's included in the report. And so you can look at your 81-month history here, as the example says. Oh, someone said to check bi-weekly. That's very good. Trust me, it's important. It's not only about the score, it's about identity theft as well. And identity theft is a big thing in North America. I mean, it's big everywhere, especially with technology. So you always want to keep on top of it, right? All right. So, I mean, if you have any question regarding the credit file, the credit history, we can talk about it at the end. But in summary, this is what your report will look like when you run that report. At the very top of the report, you would have seen your score, and that will tell you if you're at a 600 or a 650. All right. So in a nutshell, so that's what it is, right? And like I said, if there's any question at the end, we can talk about that. All right.
Andre, there's a quick question here regarding when you close an account, it sometimes shows up that the account is active. Is that something that they should look into? It's not directly related, but I thought I'd just interject with that.
Yeah. So when you close the account, it will show as active because it takes some time for it to be updated on your account. So it's monitored for a period of time, and if there's no activity for about 4 or 5 months, then it will show as closed, right? So if you close it today, it doesn't get updated the next month. They want to see that there's no activity for a period of time. Okay?
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So in the next slide, I'm going to be talking about credit card. And you will see credit card comes up a lot. And we're going to talk about it next week. This is the most hurtful piece of instrument that you can ever think about, but also it's beneficial. And when we talk about debt next week, I'm going to give you some exciting tips and tricks about how to manage your debt. Okay. But really, a credit card can have a huge impact, right? So when you get a new credit card, like I said earlier, that gives you or determines your age, your credit age, or how long you've had credit. You know, some people will get multiple credit cards because different credit cards have different rewards. For example, I know I have a TD credit card that gives me cash back, and some people will have a PC credit card that gives you PC points, right? For those who don't know, PC is a grocery chain here in Canada, right? So you're going to want different credit cards for different things, but you have to keep in mind that the more credit cards you're opening, the more it's affecting your credit, the age of your credit history. But also too, it means that you're borrowing more money at a higher rate. Now, credit card has some of the highest rates, which means that you're going to pay a lot to borrow that money, right? So you have to keep in mind the impact on your credit card as well as the impact on your finances as you choose to borrow money, right? The other thing that you want to keep in mind at all time is inquiry placed on your credit report. I've said it earlier and I say it again, that this is something that prevents a lot of people from getting loan products, right? It's important that you minimize those inquiries. I know I know when I go into Hudson Bay and I see that brand new pair of Jordan that I want, or that brand new bag or whatever, if I don't have the cash, I'm taking that card, right? Because I'm not leaving the store. Don't, right? That was my mindset back then. Please don't, because this thing will catch up on you, right? And all these stores, they offer credit card. If you go to People's Jewelry, and I know that a lot of young people, including myself, Apple is coming out with credit card where you can actually not pay upfront the cash, but you can go on the Apple website and get your iPhone or your MacBook or whatever upfront. Be very mindful of the impact on your credit score, and be mindful of the fact that you're going to pay 3 times the price of that laptop, right? And the last thing that I want to re-emphasize is credit utilization, right? This is where you will be measured on how much of your credit you're using. And this is where everything ties into like your psychology and your personal life, because if you're utilizing, for example, more than how much you are bringing in, then that's a challenge, right? And when I talk about utilization, I don't include mortgage, but it's more so about your credit card or that line of credit. My rule of thumb when it comes on to utilization is that on a line of credit or a credit card, I should never use more than I can pay off in the next paycheck. That's my rule, right? So you want to figure out what your rule is, and that will help you to manage your utilization, right?
I got a question here, Andre.
Yep.
So now that we seem to be coming out of the COVID or the pandemic episode that has obviously had an impact on all of us, do you think more credit card, lenders or stores will be aggressively trying to get people to get their credit cards just based on the lapse that they've had in terms of no activity?
Definitely. So what you'll find, and that's a good question, you'll definitely see more of that because, a lot of these companies, they have to report to their shareholders. They have to report to certain people and they have to meet certain targets, right? So giving more people credit will actually help them to boost their sales. So, and they'll make it a lot easier for you to buy things. So you're going to be seeing a lot of credit product. The airlines are started to do this. They're asking you to book tickets for next summer with a 30% or a 40% discount. So you can definitely see a spike in aggressive sales and aggressive credit activity because they have to compensate one way or the other. So be very mindful of this and don't fall for the trap. I know it sounds good, but them always say if it sounds too good to be true, or if it walk like a duck, talk like a duck, then it's quack like a duck. So be very mindful as you look into these very favorable terms that they're offering, right? You don't want to put yourself in too much debt.
Also, I was going to say seemingly favorable. The other thing is we have to recognize that everyone is in COVID recovery mode, including the businesses. So if they're in the business of lending money, right, they're going to more aggressively do so. Every industry has suffered from COVID, besides some of the tech industries, obviously, because things like Zoom and so forth are blossoming.
Precisely.
But generally speaking, everybody's in recovery.
Yeah, precisely. And those terms, it's a good way for them to recover. So, for example, I don't know what what they'll be doing specifically, but if you're paying twice the price of a laptop computer, I can imagine that's 2 customers from 1 person, right? So they're going to be very aggressive. I foresee that coming.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we're going to be taking some questions. So at the top here, I have one of my most favorite saying from Albert Einstein. He says, "He who understands it, the concept of interest, earns it. He who doesn't pays it." So if you don't know what interest is, you're going to be paying the price. But if you understand it, you're going to earn it. All right. So let's take some questions.
So at this point in time, we can take some questions. If you put your hand up, we can take your live questions and have you ask Andre. That's the name of the segment. Ask Andre.
Somebody asked if you delete your credit card account, do you lose credit history? If you delete, actually wrote it twice. So if you delete your credit card, Andre, do you lose credit history?
Yeah. All right. So if you mean by delete, if you cancel the credit card with the lender, then yes, you lose history. What I do and what I'd recommend, if you have the discipline, is to cut up the card, right? Make sure that you cut it up so that the number is not recognizable and any of the information is readable, and get rid of it and just forget about it. Right now, I have a brick credit card that I opened 7 years ago. I've never used it because I just cut it up and I completely forgot about it. So if it is that you've had this card for a long time and you want to maintain that history, that's a way that you can, get rid of it. I know they say, okay, if you don't utilize the card, what the lenders might do is cancel it anyways, right? But at any event, you'll still have that history, right? So make sure you're looking at the length of history and see how long you've had this card, because you don't want to lose that history, right? And if you have the discipline, at the end of the day, ladies and gents, it comes back to discipline, right? So you can have that card there and don't use it. Or if you're going to use it periodically just to keep it revolving so that you have the card available. But I don't recommend getting rid of a card that you've had for 7 years or 8 years if it's the only credit product you have. If you've had 2 cards for 7 years, then you can get rid of one of them, right? Or if you've had, let's say, 2 cards, one for 5 years, one for 3 years, just take the length of the number of years and divide it by 2. And then you can determine whether or not that's long enough of a time frame that you want as a credit history, right?
Excellent.
So always play around with the numbers and see whether or not it makes sense. You always want to look at your personal situation and say, hey, whether or not this decision makes sense. All right, so don't just get up and get rid of cancel the card.
So I got a question here, Andre. A lot of people in our community, the Black community specifically, can say, without a doubt, they got bad credit. It seems to be synonymous, right? Why is it that we disproportionately have bad credit in our communities? What gets us into these problems?
A big part of it is, it's systemic, to be honest. It's unfortunately, a lot of Black people and newcomer immigrant, we get low income paying job, and credit product tend to be pushed on us more so than everyone else, right? Especially the bad credit. They're not pushing line of credits on us or mortgages. They're pushing credit cards. They're pushing those Hudson Bay credit cards or those Walmart credit cards, because you know what? At the end of the day, so they create this paycheck to paycheck life cycle, right? So if you don't have enough cash, then when you don't have it, you're going to use that credit card. And what happens? Every paycheck, you don't have enough. And every paycheck, you keep using that credit card. The interest rate is ridiculous on those credit cards. So it creates a cycle that I call the debt trap, right? And so that is why we have poor credit, because these bad credit is similar to how they push bad food on us, right? So you have to be mindful. You have to have the discipline and say, I don't need that. Think about it this way. It's psychological. If you need $1,000 every paycheck, and I know it's not easy to come up with $1,000, but if you need $1,000 every couple of weeks to pay something, find a way to have that $1,000 save aside in emergency. Borrow it from yourself, and then even say to yourself, I'm going to pay myself 1% interest on this borrowing, right? Create that for yourself. It's the same thing as the credit card. It's just that you're borrowing it from somebody else. Try to find a way to develop the discipline, because they know this. I see it all the time. You know, it's kind of like I see the big ad at on Scotiabank that says, you're richer than you think, right? Really? So be mindful of all these products. If it's, like I said, if it's too good to be true, then it's too good to be true. Ask the question, what is the interest rate, right? How much am I going to be required to pay if I borrow this amount? Question?
Yes, I was just going to say briefly that, first of all, someone would like you to go over the soft and hard credit, just a summary of what you said previously, but just to dovetail on what you just said, I think you used a key word there, discipline. And I think what we can do as we go through this course is offer the disciplinary solutions, because that's really what it is. All marketing is psychology. So, yes. so the sharks or the piranha out there are going to create marketing strategies that are directed at particular psychographics or mentalities out there. And if somebody feels that they're deprived, right, then that inclination to get something to make them feel better, like especially a material object to make them feel better, that's not the way to heal yourself, right? We have to build in some real, define what is healing in terms of those feelings, and not think that money and expenditure will heal those wounds that we're feeling on the inside.
Yeah, 100%. And I like the summary that you just gave. And just to the person's question, to summarize those soft credit and soft inquiries and hard inquiries. So the soft inquiries where you go in to Equifax or Credit Karma, any one of these reporting bureaus. So you log in and you run your report. So if you were to go, let's say on Equifax, and you pay that $25, I believe it is, 25 plus tax, and you run that report, then it wouldn't have an impact on your score, right? That's what a soft inquiry is. Or if you were to go to Credit Karma and run it yourself, soft inquiry. A hard inquiry is where you're trying to borrow from a lender and they ask for your permission to run your credit report in order to determine if you're qualified for a loan product. And so that is what affects your score.
So another good question we have here from the chat room: should I bother investing in university? And a lot of our community doesn't, period, in terms of society, doesn't often have the funds to pay for, their college or the university or whatever training they're going to be getting into, right? So they get OSAP loans. Yeah. So could you just talk a little bit in terms of OSAP, how that works, and is it something that's a good thing to take, or is there a better route to take? Just based on, obviously, getting higher education is... Yeah, so I love that question. I live for that question. When I just came here, I met a few people who said, I'm not taking OSAP because you have to pay interest and I don't want to borrow any money. Well, I'll tell you that I don't agree with that. I strongly recommend that, you take OSAP if you can't afford it, right? You always want to separate costs from investments, right? It's important that you look at what is a cost. A cost is something that's not going to produce any return. An investment is something that's going to produce a return. Excellent. An investment in yourself is always worth it, right? So, and a lot of us don't come from rich family. It means that we have to borrow. The same reason why you have to borrow for a mortgage. So I would recommend that you get that OSAP, create a plan. I always like to look ahead in the future. And as we go into the concept of cash flow management, where we talk about budgeting,
you can plan ahead, right? Prepare your budget, look into the future, see how much you need to earn and how much you're going to put toward your OSAP. But never let anybody tell you that, oh, don't take OSAP, it's not worth it. It's totally worth it. When you actually look at life, I always like to use this analogy. How many people you see build a house from the roof down? Nobody. You always start with that foundation up. Education is one of those investments that's a foundation. Even if you studied accounting and you'd never become an accountant, I'm pretty sure there's something that you learn throughout the course of that education that will become pivotal in your life. So it's an investment. Go for it.
Very well said, Andre. And I think what we need to really hone in on as well is we're talking about anti-Black racism at the end of the day here. And when we talk about mitigating anti-Black racism, it's going to come from efforts on both ends of the spectrum. So on our end of the spectrum as Black people, educational attainment, financial literacy, these things actually will prepare us for when we do attain equality. Right. And I agree with you 100%. If you're investing in your education, and then you get involved in an OSAP related loan, then what you're doing is you're actually, especially if you're choosing the right types of careers, this is something we also want to talk about, is what careers are we pursuing as Black people so that we actually moving ourselves and the race forward, right?
That's a very important part. Yes, and actually when you're choosing career, you actually want to, I know sometimes we are passionate about certain things, but sometimes you have to look at what you're investing in. So even when you're choosing education, you have to look at the return on that investment, right? You always want to think about the return on investment. So if you're going to take a course that is outdated and wouldn't produce any return, then you might be at a loss. It's an investment at the end of the day. But what I want to add as well is that the interest on the loan, the OSAP, it's tax deductible. So you can use that interest to get some of your taxes that you pay back, right? So even though the interest rate is about 5 or 6% on the OSAP, the amount that you get back about 15% of the tax you pay. So the interest is pretty low compared to the other financial institutions.
Okay, we're going to do one more question with Andre. So in regards to credit card payment and the minimum, you suggested that we should be doing more than just paying the minimum.
So that's a good question. It's actually in my debt management session, pay more than the minimum. Right.
So what would you suggest in terms of percentage-wise that people?
All right. So it's scenario-based. If you are able to pay off all of it, pay all of it. If you can't pay all of it, I'd say pay about 20% of the remaining balance. Right. But never pay the minimum because you always want to keep into account the cost of borrowing. Interest on credit card is about 22 or 23%. That's a very high amount to be paying. And you also want to keep in mind that you're not getting that in a savings account, right? So if you are able to pay more, then pay more. When I use my credit card, what I do, my method is I have the cash available to make the purchase. I make the purchase on my credit card because I want the cash back, and then I immediately pay back my credit card. So you have to look at your scenario and see what your personal scenario is, and then make a decision based on that. I know sometimes, and again, Farley highlighted earlier, it's psychology and it's discipline. Some people will actually have the money to make the payment on the credit card, but what they do instead, they make the purchase and they say, oh, you know what, I have 30 days to pay it off. No, you're setting up yourself for failure because what happens if something comes up in between and you can't pay it off? So get in that habit of paying it off if you have the money to do so right away, or say, hey, I'm going to pay about 20% each time or 30% of the balance.
So last one, I should wait for the bill before I pay it off, or should I pay it right after you make the purchase?
No, you can make it right away. I think the credit card online, if you have access to online banking, you will see you will see the amount deducted from your credit card immediately. You can transfer the amount from your bank account back into toward your credit card. So you can transfer from checking account to credit card and your balance gets cleared right away. Because what happens if you wait until you get that statement, you're likely going to be paying interest on it, right? So you have about 30 days to pay off the balance before you pay interest, right? So make sure you pay that before. So even though you know your statement date is the 15th of the other month, just make sure that you either go into the bank and pay it off, or if you have online access, to just transfer the money from your checking account to the credit card. So I don't suggest waiting until you get the statement because you're going to be paying interest.
And the very, very last piece, because I know we got to move on. Can you renegotiate, or can you negotiate percentage that you pay in terms of interest with the bank where you're getting your credit card? I know I did that when I got my first credit card, just coming out of high school. Somebody gave me some advice, and I think at that point in time it was like 18 or 19%. And I went to the bank and I asked them to give me, I should say, the lowest interest card. So I still maintain that credit, but I got a lower interest card. Is that
so that's really what it is. I mean, you can try to negotiate with the bank. In some cases, they'll say yes, they'll give you a lower rate. But really what it comes down to, I find, is that they'll tell you to apply for a different kind of card that has a lower rate, right? So for example, I have my TD cashback. If I was in a situation and I needed a lower interest rate credit card, then they'll say, okay, we have a lower interest credit card, you can apply for it. So it really comes back down to you applying to a different card with a lower rate. What I strongly recommend is that if you can get a line of credit, get it instead of a credit card, because the line of credit usually has a lower rate. But if you already have a credit card, right, and you want to get a line of credit, you can get it as well. Because what I do sometimes is that if I'm struggling to pay off my next payment, I'll transfer the money from my line of credit toward my credit card. So my line of credit is about 3% interest and my credit card is about 24. So it means that if I'm going to be late, I'd be late on a 3% balance compared to a 24% balance, right? So that's something that you can keep in mind. And when we talk about debt next week, this is actually a type of consolidation. But you'll find the banks, they sell consolidation as a really interesting concept to get you to pay interest and more money up front. So we're going to talk about that next week. But that's a good strategy to have a line of credit on the side that you can use to pay off your credit card. I usually try not to recommend using debt to pay debt, but this is one of those scenarios where it might be beneficial to do so.
All right. So, Andre, let people know you've got 1,000 questions here coming at you, which is a great indication that we're being impactful and effective. Let people know where they can contact you until next week, so they can ask their questions and just give them that contact information.
Of course. So in the next slide, you'll see my email address. You can email me at flipandfloss@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to answer any question that you have. You can also follow me at Andre Love, so AndreLuv. That's Instagram, or you can follow me on Flip and Floss on Instagram as well. So again, email me at flipandfloss@gmail.com or follow me on Instagram. I love talking about finances. I love to talk about credit history, and I love to do so with people that looks like me. And because I'm here to work with you, to work with the BBPA and the BBPA team to help our community to think differently and more creatively about money, because that's really one of the areas where we're lacking. And together we can do it. And next week we're going to talk about debt management. I'm going to give you the tools that you need to succeed in anywhere you are, pretty much. Okay. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned. I'll have another beautiful point for you next week.
We're gonna get fly.
So just as we introduce this, it's important for all the participants to recognize that while you have financial or develop your financial literacy, there are life skills that accompany that form of literacy. So for instance, if you become, let's say, academically literate in English class, it's only when you apply it and have the solidarity and the foundation that Andre mentioned that you're going to get the results from it. So along with your financial literacy, there's a social literacy and that Roderick and I are going to delve into in terms of how you strategize and become a leader in your own life so you can effectively apply the literacy that Andre's offering you to develop within yourself and within your family structure and your circle of friends, etc. Just remember, the more we collaborate in positivity, the more impact we'll have, and the faster we'll eradicate the social ills like anti-Black racism. So without further ado, my man Rob B, I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Well, you never knew Folly was a rhymer, but we all have it in us. So we're going to talk about right now the aspects of the financial literacy and you, and how we, in terms of life skills and in terms of how we're going to move it forward, how we as Urban Resolutions, do encourage you to just look into self. And we're going to actually ask the zoologist to go back a couple slides because we're missing a couple there, just in the sense of change. And is there something that you need to change in your life at this point in time? So if people can just chime in on the chat, or, we actually encourage people also. Right now, as we use this Zoom technology, this is not going anywhere. It's only actually going to have a bigger presence within people's lives moving forward. Yes, through the pandemic, it has been a great tool to communicate with, but certain things we are not going to go back to, and that's just inevitable. We are not going to go back in the sense of, sometimes the traditional meetings that we've been accustomed to for all the years may not be happening on that same platform anymore in terms of being in person. It is now going to be obviously the new norm, as it has been very popularly put forth by society. So if you have the capacity to show yourself on this platform that we're on Flip, Fly, and Floss on every Saturday, we encourage you to do so, because we have to be seen. Because if we're not seen, we're not going to be heard. And our actions will definitely speak louder than words. So showing who's here, showing who's in the house, and having, you ask questions. Yes, the chat is a great platform to do that, but also in terms of asking those questions in live, in terms of that reality that we have right now, it's also a good thing, because again, when we're going forward, whether it be through interviews or whether it be meetings with our employers, it's going to be on this, and you will have to be seen. So, get prepared, folks. We cannot be trailing in this new norm, in this digital world that we are now in. And we have been in, but now even more so. So if you've got capacity, please do so. Please show your face. Please come on video.
That's a great point, Roderick. And I think it goes back to what I said about the psychological impact that society has on us. We have to recognize that our seeming lack of trust in one another is a systemic, is caused systemically. If you go back to our history, prior to the transatlantic slave trade, we didn't have these issues. Colonization has taken us into a place of mistrust, a place of insecurity, a place of paranoia. So what we have to do is recognize that these safe spaces, like what the BBPA and Urban Resolutions and Flip and Floss and all the partners, the foundation that's supporting us are providing here, this is an opportunity to just, like they say, put a big toe in the water. You don't have to jump in with both feet if you feel a sense of apprehension, but try it. It's very important to try and break that mold. And when we talk about change, we're talking about breaking the mold that we're in that has us stuck at a particular low level ceiling. We want to break through that ceiling and open up the sky of opportunity. And once we open up the sky, that's when we fly. Hey, come on, son. Anyway, I see Nadine's expression when she likes rhymes. Nadine, will you be singing today? You're on mute. You're on mute, Nadine.
Yes, I will be singing today. Always.
Okay, so the session goes to about 11:30. Nadine will be on at 11:31, just so you guys know.
All right.
All right. That's my good friend Nadine.
So what are some of the things that we have to change in our lives as community members, as fathers, as mothers, as children? What are some of the things that we need to change? And everybody has something that they need to change. So for instance, people make New Year's resolutions and say, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to, exercise every day, or I'm going to lose weight. Anything. It could be anything. What are some of those things that we need to change in our lives?
Yeah, we need all year resolutions. We're 450 years behind. We need all year resolutions. Once a year is not good enough, folks. Let's be real.
Okay, so somebody said
to eat healthy, Rod.
Saving more, obviously, definitely so. It's always a good change to have, right? So, there's a plethora of things that we as individuals need to change in our lives. But here at Urban Resolutions, we've recognized to make change happen, you've got to be understanding who you are as an individual. And a lot of times we've been told who we are. So in our Say It Loud campaign, we reference that a lot of especially black males have been told, A, they're going to be rappers, B, they're going to be, great basketball players, or C, criminals. We've been pigeonholed into, and a lot of times just seeing ourselves within these different industries. And I say industries because criminality is an industry, because you end up in jail or a prison, and that in itself is a huge industry or institution where we definitely don't belong. So we're not advocating for that any way. But again, basketball and hip hop have very low thresholds of success just based on the entry points. So we know that we are engineers, doctors, accountants, marketers, and everything in between, but we never get that acknowledgement or those highlights that are associated with being much more than what society portrays. So we definitely want to encourage people to look into self and find who we exactly are. And in doing so, we've come up with a couple concepts to help you figure out exactly who you are. So if we can get to that next slide, our zoomologist, and we're going to talk about your interests, your skill sets, your interests, your personality traits, and your skill sets. And Farley, if you wanted just to jump in.
Take it away.
What IPS means, my brother.
Absolutely. Okay, so while we wait for that slide, I want folks to know what Roderick said. This is fundamental. A fundamental tool that we can use in our lives. Okay, so when we talk about an interest, we're talking about the things that turn our head, what catches our attention, what inspires, makes our heart beat faster in a positive way. So those are the things that you're interested in. When somebody gives you a blank slate of time and say, what would you like to do? Right? You expand that to what would I like to do with my life? Right? And that could be in the career standpoint, in the relationship standpoint, what have you. So you need to know what your interests are. Okay, the next thing is to know your personality traits. Your personality traits are the natural inclinations that you have behaviorally. Like, are you a helpful person? Are you a thoughtful person? Are you do you have are you a hard worker? All of these are personality traits. Do you have a positive outlook? What are the things people would say about you when they describe you? Those are your personality traits. And then the skill sets are the things that you're good at. What do you have a natural inclination for or learned inclination for? Some people just start off building with Lego, and then all of a sudden you project into their future and they become architects. My eldest daughter, for instance, she was at 3 years old, 4 years old. She refused to sign birthday cards and Father's and Mother's Day cards. She wanted to make them from scratch. Right? So you bring them a Hallmark card and you say, okay, kids, sign this for your dad. My daughter would say, no, I want to make daddy a card. And now she's an advertising design specialist and she has her own business, the whole nine. So we've got to make sure we tap into who we are. And then the next piece of that formula, folks, when you add up your IPS, again, your interests, your personality traits, and your skill sets, when you add those up, they equal your GPS, which we all know to be your global positioning system, or where you end up on this planet in terms of your career path, your state of joy. We have to make a distinction between happiness and joy. Happy is winning the lottery. Joy is seeing your child walk for the first time, graduate from high school, elementary school, high school, college, or university, or the trades. That's what brings joy to your heart. The first time you hear your child say mommy or daddy, that's joy. Okay, that's a clear distinction from happiness, which tends to be an incident pertaining to something more external from who you truly are. So IPS equals GPS. I'm going to get Rod to share with us what his interests, personality traits, and skill sets are. And then what I would like you guys to do, if possible, is to share, whether it be through video, ideally, as Rod said, we got to show up to blow up, right? So if we a little apprehensive or reticent about that, then share in this chat exactly what your interests, personality traits, and skill sets are, and we'll make this fun. When you send those comments, I will tell you a career path that you might want to pursue.
All right. So in terms of my IPS, I've always been interested in social causes. I'm a social activist. So from when I was a teenager, I was, listening to different speakers who had a social agenda, and either been, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Louis Farrakhan. And in terms of our community, people who have, just a relentless fear of making sure our social agenda was on the actual public agenda was a huge interest that I had. So, I've listened and read several books on how to, be an effective social activist and advocate for, issues that matter within our community. My personality traits, I would say I'm humble, I'm serious, but I'm funny. And, so I've got a good sense of humor. And also, in the sense of my personality, I'm very empathetic. I try to put myself in other people's shoes and feel, what they may be undergoing if it's a crisis or, even in terms of positivity and happiness. My skill sets, I'm definitely a good listener, even though my kids may not think so, right? Definitely, I believe I'm a good communicator. And also, I believe also that I'm a person that can be approached, and I could be that individual that is able to give advice in the sense of being able to take into consideration whatever that person needs. So even if I can't give advice from my own sense of knowledge, I can try to refer that person. So in the sense of being, I'm very hands-on, and I'm very innovative in the sense of my skill sets. One of the things that I want to point out that somebody has put in the chat that is extremely important, what keeps us back from, our true self, so from our IPS. And somebody wrote down procrastination. And here's what, folks, I want y'all to listen to this very, very carefully. Procrastination has killed more Black dreams than HIV, than homicide, than anything that really disproportionately impacts our community. So we cannot wait, debate, or procrastinate. Tomorrow is too late. Get it done now. If we can start something right now and get on top of it, this will be your entry point for your interest, personality traits, and skill sets, which is a true meaning of self. Okay? So again, do not wait, debate, or procrastinate. Tomorrow is too late. Get on it now. We need to start getting on things and just being relentless in terms of our approach and our demand for making change. And that positive mindset, we see it, we can envision it. Seeing is believing. Don't wait for another day. Get it done now. Okay, so definitely we want to just hammer that home. Do not procrastinate. And if you've got that tendency, you can email us or get in contact with us. We've got several strategies that we'll be going actually through in this program to help you get rid of some of those habits that we've established over the years. And procrastination, again, is one of those things. So we definitely want to just enforce and just have that drilled in your minds. Do it now. Okay, without going into that further, what are some of your interest, personality traits, and skill sets?
I just shared them in the chat as well. So my interests generally are entertainment, sports, and people. And I tell people all the time, if you Google me, everything you see about me will fall in one, two, or all three of those categories. And the beauty of it is because they emanate out of one being, so they often cross-pollinate, meaning they influence each other. So what I do in entertainment, I can transpose into the sports universe, particularly now esports. The people part of it encompasses everything. So entertainment and sports obviously have a fundamental requirement, which is people-to-people engagement and, event engagement and so forth. My personality traits, I'm very outgoing. I'm very uninhibited. I'm very opinionated. Some might call me argumentative, and I'll agree with that too. I'm very innovative in terms of idea building. I love collaboration when two or more people align in thought or in ideas. Roderick and I, we battle it out on the phone. You guys would not believe how we battle, but we come out with a congruent, we recognize the common denominator of what our intent is. Our intentions are right in line and in common. And even when we work with Nadine, it's the same thing. We have difference of opinion on a daily basis. Right? But at the end of the day, we go to the higher purpose and we recognize if we do this, we will move the Black race forward and move the entire world forward. Because here's the deal. If the Black race moves forward, the world does better. And that's what people who don't like us need to understand. In terms of my skill set, did I say skill sets?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so personality traits, I also said. So my interests, again, entertainment, sports, and people. My personality traits are the outgoingness and the confidence and all those things. And my skill sets are the ability to communicate my ideas and build teams and work in collaboration with others. So I try to do as much of that as possible on a daily basis because I like to do who I am.
Okay, so here's the homework for next week. we're going to ask everybody who's on here, and then again, to tell a friend, to come up with 3 interests, 3 personality traits, and 3 skill sets individually. So we want to know who you are. And if you feel free, or if you feel comfortable actually to share those with us, that would be a great thing, because again, we want to know who you are, and we want to know that you know who you are. So dig deep. Sometimes it's a little bit of a below the surface that we've got to go to find out and unearth who we are in actuality as individuals. So we want you, again, to come up with 3 interests, personality traits, and skill sets for next week. And
that's 3 of each, folks. 3 of each.
Absolutely, 100%.
And you know what I'm going to say, Rod? Let's throw this out there. Whoever brings the most new guests to this course is going to get a Say It Loud hoodie. Okay? All we need to know is your size, and that's all good. And you'll get a Say It Loud hoodie. I would demonstrate it right now, but it's not in the same room I'm in.
All right. And you know what, Farley? I'm going to add on to that. Whoever brings the most guests next week will also throw in a $50 gift card.
There you go.
No interest. Okay. Before we get out of here.
And I have something to add as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
Also a BBPA membership.
Okay.
A BBPA membership. And you know the cost of that. Definitely. It is definitely something you want to have. And as the membership director, I definitely can give you all the details of, what a membership includes, and, for a membership being donated to yourself at this point in time, what the benefits are. So, get at.
Can I touch on that? I think one of the areas of social development that our community needs, a lot of us don't belong to anything. Right? We don't join organizations and things that are at the same rate as other cultural groups. Right? And there are a lot of systemic and historical reasons for that. But once we're aware of these problems, perpetuating them is the fault. Right? But trying to change them is when you evolve into the higher beings that we are. As Rod and I always say, when we see that Wakanda vision, those of you who saw Black Panther, that's the Wakanda, the community, is the undisrupted version of who we truly are. Right? Don't worry about this. No, not don't worry about it, but don't accept that we are just products of slavery, products of colonization. We existed way before that, which is why they needed to enslave us. Okay? So understand that it's great to belong to organizations like the BBPA and the Say It Loud Project, which we'll share with you as well going forward. But belong to something and try to stand for something. Because if you don't stand for something, you actually stand for nothing.
And you'll fall for anything.
There you go.
Okay. So before we close out, we want to hear a couple words from our treasurer at the BBPA. His name is Michael Pinnock. Michael, are you with us today, my brother?
I am fully engaged and enjoying every single second of this literacy program and the social aspect at the end. I hope you guys can hear me well, because I'm having difficulty on my side with my internet. So just give me a little answer. If you can hear me. Perfect. So I just want to say something before I mention the BBPA communication. One of the things I use to assess my interests, and I recommend to folks, if you want to know where your interest really lies currently, not where you think you want to be or you think where you're at, look at how you spend your time, your energy, and your money or resources. If you look at what you're doing and when you do it and how you do it, it kind of gives you an indication as to where your interest is right now. It might not be where you want to be or where you think you are, but look at where you're spending your time, your energy, and your money, and it will give you a feel as to that's your interest. In terms of the BBP, we would like to extend we've got an internship program, and this is really going out to the bulk of the participants, the youths right now. The BBP is offering an internship program. I would like participants and guests of the participant to just write to us or send an email to the office and register for that program that's coming up. So, you learn the financial literacy here and you get a chance to do some work for us that you'll be paid in an internship program. So I just like to throw that one out, and you'll hear more about it. We'll post some stuff on our website that will detail a little more, but just using this opportunity because we have up to 49 persons on this chat. I think we're down to about 40 now, but that's a good coverage.
But absolutely, and we're only going to be growing, my brother. Every week that we're on here, we're going to be doubling up. So we had 49 this week. Next week, we're going to have 80. Shit, 100. What am I talking? I need to go get some arithmetic literacy. Okay. Just wanted also to mention in terms of the BBPA, right now scholarships are open. If you are going to a post-secondary institution, please apply now. So whether it be college, university, or entering, a training aspect, please apply now. We've got a very healthy, robust scholarship pot this year. So, it's all there for the community to take advantage of. So if you or somebody has, somebody are going to that post-secondary education, please apply now. So without further ado, before we end off, any questions in regards to your interests, personality traits, or skill sets that you have for Farley and myself? And you know what? Anybody who's on here right now who asked a live question, I'm going to be giving a Say It Loud hoodie. And the hoodies are fly. They're warm. Obviously, you may not need it right now, but you can definitely utilize that come October or November. So who's going to be the first one to come on live with us?
It's going to be Michael.
All right.
No insider trading, Michael. No insider trading.
I'm just kidding. Next week you'll see my video. I just came back from Jamaica, so I'm under curfew and all sort of stuff. So a lot of time I'm just in house clothes walking around. So, but next week you'll see my full video all session.
Okay.
But I don't have a direct question, but I'd love a hoodie.
All right, we'll get you a hoodie, my brother, 100%. So, who's got a question for us based on their interest, personality, and skill sets, or who wants to share something that they're going to be changing in the days to come? Again, when we're coming out of this pandemic, a lot of life is going to change. Do we have somebody here? Is that Cheyenne? All right, we got our first person with us today. Cheyenne, how are you today?
Hi, my name's Kiana. My question is, are you ever too young to learn about financial literacy?
You're never too young to learn about financial literacy. And Michael is, I'm not going to even try to give all of his accreditations and whatnot, but he is a very high accomplished accountant. Michael, are you ever too young to learn about financial literacy?
Never, because in addition to the social and political stuff that we do, the economics is one of our big challenge. The economics, and it is the understanding of numbers, as Andre said earlier. It's the understanding of numbers. We live in an environment which is capitalist. That's what they call it now. It's all over the world. There was differences 20 years ago, but everyone is on that mode of doing business. And we need to know, just like we learn to speak and we learn to count at a very, very early age, we need to learn how to manage the little resources that come across us. Because the Bible gives you an example, The guy got 1 talent, another guy got 2 talents, and another guy got 5. And the guy with 2 and 5 multiplied, used it. And the father said, go ahead and keep it. The one who had 1 and he hid it under that stone didn't do anything with that talent. It was taken away. So you're never too young to learn. And that is a great question that deserves more than one hoodie.
All right.
A hoodie and a long sleeve t-shirt.
Let's give it up for Cheyenne, or Kayla, I believe her name was, for being that first person. And, having the courage and, the bravery.
Kiana.
Okay, Kiana, my apologies. All right, so zoomologists, we're going to go to the last slide. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on this first inaugural day. Actually, we got one comment from our president here also. We appreciate you. We value you. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. This is very important information that we're going to be sharing for the next 24 weeks, and we want you to be here along this journey, because the more we know in terms of our knowledge and the more we put it out there, this is not Vegas. What stays in Vegas or happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is not Vegas. We need to get out to our communities, to our friends, our families, to build that capacity. So please, please, please tell a friend to join us every Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And even if they're not within the community here in Canada, let them join in. Because again, what we know here, they can know somewhere else also. Nadine Spencer, last words.
Thank you. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for joining, because an investment in yourselves at this moment is so critical and so important. So thank you for taking the time. I want to thank our donor, the Donald Reed Estate. I know Ian's not here, but we thank them for their generous contribution to this program. And I also want to thank our program partner, Say It Loud, Roderick, who's also membership director on the board, Farley Flex, and Andre Smith. Just an incredible presentation. So I want to thank you for the time, because you went over. Everyone, I want you to know that this team invested so much into this program. They did so many dry runs of of today's program to make sure they get it right. They wanted to engage you. They wanted the right content, and they themselves wants to invest in us as a collaborative and as a community, because when we strengthen each other, it's a win-win for everybody. So I want to thank you all. I know Ross Kadas is on, our board member, and Michael, you've heard from Michael, our treasurer. And thank you very much. Have a fantastic day and keep coming back. We look forward to seeing you each and every week. Thank you very much.